On January 4, 2026, the world awoke to a headline that would reverberate across continents and shake the very foundations of international politics. In the dead of night, U.S. Special Forces launched a daring and unprecedented assault on the Miraflores presidential palace in Caracas. The operation, shrouded in secrecy and executed with surgical precision, unfolded under the cover of darkness, catching the world and Venezuela's leadership completely off guard. As military helicopters thundered overhead and floodlights swept across the palace grounds, the fate of a nation was being rewritten in real time. In a matter of minutes, American soldiers stormed the palace's ornate halls, swiftly overpowering the presidential guard. Their target, Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela's embattled and controversial president. For years, Maduro had clung to power amid economic collapse, mass protests, and international condemnation. But on this night, his rule ended, not with a negotiated transition or a popular vote, but in the grip of foreign soldiers. Cameras captured the moment Maduro, disheveled and visibly shaken, was led away in handcuffs. His era of defiance brought to a sudden and dramatic close. The mission, codenamed Freedom's Dawn, sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles and newsrooms alike. Within hours, headlines blared across every major network. U.S. forces capture Maduro. Operation Freedom's Dawn stuns world. Venezuela's strongman falls. The operation's speed and audacity left analysts scrambling for answers, while social media erupted with speculation, outrage, and celebration. The world had witnessed a watershed moment, one that would instantly upend the delicate balance of international relations. That same night, President Trump addressed the nation from the Oval Office, his tone both triumphant and resolute. With the American flag behind him, he declared the operation a decisive victory for freedom and a powerful blow against tyranny. Tonight, the United States has acted to restore hope to the Venezuelan people, he proclaimed, and to send a message to dictators everywhere: your time is up. The president's words echoed around the globe, signaling a new era of American assertiveness on the world stage. In the days that followed, U.S. officials doubled down on the administration's justification for the raid. They insisted that the intervention was necessary to prevent a looming humanitarian catastrophe, citing years of food shortages, political repression, and economic freefall under Maduro's rule. The White House framed the operation as a moral imperative, a last resort after years of failed diplomacy and escalating sanctions. We could not stand by while a criminal regime destroyed its own people. One official declared at a press conference as the world watched and debated. As dawn broke over Caracas, the city awoke to a new reality. American troops fanned out across the capital, securing key government buildings and establishing a visible presence on the streets. The once untouchable symbols of Maduro's power were now under foreign control. Rumors swirled about the formation of a U.S.-backed transitional authority, as local officials and opposition leaders scrambled to fill the sudden power vacuum. For many Venezuelans, the future had never felt more uncertain, or more full of possibility. The public response was as divided as the nation itself. In some neighborhoods, crowds poured into the streets, waving Venezuelan flags and cheering the end of Maduro's rule. For them, the arrival of American forces represented liberation and the hope of a new beginning. But elsewhere, anger and resentment simmered. Protesters denounced the intervention as a violation of Venezuela's sovereignty, holding signs that read, "Yankee go home" and "No to foreign occupation." The country was split between relief and outrage, unity and division. Around the world, leaders and citizens alike grappled with the implications of the raid. Was this a bold act of international justice or a reckless display of American aggression? Some praised the U.S. for taking decisive action against a dictator, while others warned that the operation set a dangerous precedent for unilateral intervention. In capitals from Moscow to Beijing, from London to Brasilia, governments convened emergency meetings to assess the fallout and reconsider their alliances. The boldness of the raid redrew the map of global power overnight. Political analysts debated whether the world was witnessing the dawn of a new American century or the beginning of a more chaotic and unpredictable era. Questions about sovereignty, the limits of intervention, and the future of international law dominated the airwaves. Would other nations follow America's lead? Or would they push back against what they saw as a dangerous overreach? For years, Washington had relied on sanctions, diplomatic pressure, and covert support for the opposition in its efforts to oust Maduro. Few believed the U.S. would ever cross the ultimate line, seizing a sitting head of state by force. The operation marked a dramatic escalation, one that would reverberate through every future crisis and conflict. That line, once considered unthinkable, had now been crossed. The world's most powerful nation had demonstrated its willingness to act unilaterally, regardless of international norms or the potential for backlash. The message was clear. In the pursuit of its interests, the United States would not be constrained by precedent or protocol. The images of a captured Maduro, dazed, defeated, and surrounded by foreign soldiers, flashed across screens worldwide. They became instant symbols of a new era, fueling debates about justice, power, and the future of global leadership. For some, the sight was a long-awaited vindication. For others, a chilling warning of what might come next. The precedent was set. The world's most powerful nation had acted alone, reshaping the rules of engagement for the 21st century. In capitals around the globe, leaders and citizens alike wondered what this bold new doctrine would mean for their own security, their own sovereignty, and the fragile order that had governed international relations for decades. As the dust settled in Caracas and the world tried to make sense of the upheaval, one thing was certain. The consequences, both intended and unintended, were only beginning to unfold. The story of a president in chains was just the beginning of a much larger and far more unpredictable chapter in world history. In the immediate aftermath of the operation, the Trump administration moved swiftly to justify its controversial actions to both the American public and the international community. The White House was abuzz with activity, as officials coordinated their messaging and prepared to address the world. The administration knew that the stakes were high, and that every word would be scrutinized. President Trump, standing shoulder to shoulder with his top advisors and military leaders, outlined a three-pronged rationale for the raid. He emphasized that the mission was not a reckless act, but a calculated response to three urgent threats: the fight against drug trafficking, the restoration of democracy in Venezuela, and the protection of regional security. Each point was presented as a vital component of U.S. national interest. Trump painted a dire picture of Venezuela under Nicolas Maduro, describing the country as a full-fledged narco-state. He accused Maduro of personally overseeing a vast cocaine empire, one that funneled drugs into the United States and destabilized neighboring countries. According to Trump, this criminal network was not just a local problem, but a direct threat to American families and communities. To bolster these claims, the White House released a series of intelligence reports and documents. Officials presented what they described as irrefutable evidence linking Maduro's regime to international drug cartels. Charts, photographs, and intercepted communications were displayed, all intended to convince the public and Congress that decisive action was necessary. Trump argued that the raid represented a major victory in the ongoing war on drugs. He claimed that by targeting the heart of the Venezuelan drug operation, the U.S. had disrupted a key supply route and prevented countless lethal substances from reaching American streets. The administration framed the operation as a life-saving measure, one that would protect American youth and families from the scourge of addiction. Beyond the drug war, Trump cast the mission as a bold step to liberate the Venezuelan people from the grip of dictatorship. He spoke passionately about the need to restore free and fair elections, promising that the U.S. stood with those fighting for democracy. The administration portrayed itself as a champion of human rights, determined to end Maduro's reign and give Venezuelans a voice in their future. The administration also sounded the alarm about Venezuela's growing alliances with adversarial powers. Trump and his advisors warned that Maduro's close ties with Russia, China, and Iran posed a grave threat to the stability of the entire Western Hemisphere. They argued that these alliances could allow hostile nations to gain a foothold in Latin America, undermining U.S. influence and security. By removing Maduro, Trump insisted, the United States was not only defending its own interests, but also upholding the principles of the Monroe Doctrine, a long-standing policy opposing foreign intervention in the Americas. The administration framed the operation as a reaffirmation of American leadership and a warning to outside powers to stay out of the region. The message from the White House was clear. This was not an act of aggression or imperialism, but a necessary intervention to protect America and its allies. Trump emphasized that the U.S. had consulted with regional partners and acted in concert with those who shared its vision for a stable, democratic hemisphere. Yet, despite the administration's efforts to control the narrative, critics at home and abroad quickly voiced their skepticism. News analysts debated the true motivations behind the raid, while protesters accused Trump of using foreign policy for political gain. Headlines questioned whether the operation was truly about security, or if it masked other intentions. As the world watched and reacted, the true motives behind the U.S. raid on Venezuela became a subject of intense global debate. Allies and adversaries alike weighed in, and the international community was left to judge whether the Trump administration's justification would stand the test of time, or be remembered as a pretext for intervention. The administration's top justification was the war on drugs. The administration's top justification was the war on drugs. The administration's top justification was the war on drugs. Officials painted Venezuela as a cartel state, with Maduro as kingpin. The Department of Justice unsealed indictments, charging Maduro and aides with narco-terrorism. The narrative capturing Maduro was a police action, not an act of war. This framing made intervention seem like domestic policy, linking Venezuela's drug trade to America's overdose crisis. Yet, experts doubted the scale of the threat, calling the drug argument exaggerated and politically convenient. The war on drugs, once again, became a powerful pretext for intervention. Trump's second pillar was democracy and human rights. The administration cast the raid as a moral rescue mission, citing Maduro's repression, sham elections, and a humanitarian crisis. Images of starving children and failing hospitals were used to justify intervention. The U.S. recognized opposition leader Juan Guaidó as Venezuela's rightful president, framing the operation as support for legitimate government. Critics, however, questioned the sincerity of this crusade, noting America's selective support for democracy elsewhere. Many warned that military intervention risked chaos and set a dangerous precedent. Even democracy advocates condemned the violation of sovereignty. The line between liberation and invasion blurred in the eyes of the world. The third justification was regional security. The administration warned that Venezuela, with Russian, Chinese, and Iranian ties, was a strategic threat in America's backyard. Invoking the Monroe Doctrine, Trump argued the raid was a defensive move to block foreign influence. The refugee crisis, spilling into Colombia and Brazil, was cited as further evidence of instability. Removing Maduro, they claimed, would restore order and relieve pressure on U.S. allies. Critics saw this as a pretext for reasserting American dominance. Latin American leaders, wary of U.S. interventionism, condemned the move as a return to old patterns. The hemisphere's security, it seemed, was as much about power as about peace. Outside official circles, many saw a simpler motive: oil. Venezuela's vast reserves have long tempted global powers, and critics argued the raid was about securing energy for American interests. With Venezuela's oil industry in collapse, a U.S.-friendly government could revive production and benefit American companies. The timing, amid global energy uncertainty, fueled suspicions. The administration denied any oil motive, but the blood for oil narrative stuck, especially in Latin America. For many, the idea of intervention for democracy seemed less plausible than intervention for resources. The shadow of oil loomed over every official explanation. The world's cynicism was hard to dispel. Some analysts pointed to domestic politics as the real driver. With midterm elections looming, a dramatic foreign victory could rally voters and boost Trump's approval. Maduro, a socialist strongman, was an ideal villain for American audiences. The operation played well with key constituencies, especially in Florida. The spectacle dominated headlines, distracting from domestic troubles and scandals. But it was a risky gamble. Failure could have been disastrous. For Trump, the timing and target were no accident. The raid was as much about winning at home as abroad. The world's reaction was swift and mostly negative. Latin American leaders, even Maduro's critics, condemned the raid as a violation of sovereignty. Russia and China called it international banditry, demanding UN action. European allies expressed deep concern, warning that democracy cannot be imposed by force. Legal experts declared the operation illegal under international law. The U.S. found itself isolated, its global standing damaged. The Trump administration dismissed the backlash. But the diplomatic fallout was real. The world wondered if this was a one-off or the start of a new era of American intervention. The motives behind Maduro's capture were tangled and deeply rooted in decades of tension. Security, democracy, oil, and politics all played a part. For years, the world watched as Venezuela's crisis deepened, with its vast oil reserves fueling both hope and conflict. The U.S. government, citing threats to regional stability and human rights abuses, saw an opportunity to intervene. But critics argued that economic interests were just as important as ideals. The decision to act was not made lightly, and the world braced for the consequences. The raid set a precedent. Never before had the U.S. claimed the right to seize a sitting foreign leader on foreign soil, shaking the very foundations of international law. Legal scholars and diplomats debated the implications, warning that the global order, built on respect for sovereignty, was now at risk. The operation's legality was questioned in courtrooms and newsrooms alike, as the world wondered what new lines had been crossed. Critics warned this could embolden other powers to act unilaterally, making the world less stable. Allies and adversaries alike watched closely, some fearing a new era of interventionism, others seeing an opportunity to pursue their own agendas. The United Nations called for restraint, but the diplomatic fallout was immediate and intense. For Venezuela, the future was uncertain. Liberation or chaos could follow. Some citizens celebrated, hoping for a new beginning, while others feared deeper instability and foreign control. The streets of Caracas filled with both hope and anxiety, as families wondered what tomorrow would bring. For the U.S., the operation marked a shift toward a more confrontational foreign policy. The administration defended its actions as necessary for global security, but critics at home and abroad questioned the wisdom of such bold moves. The debate over America's role in the world grew louder, with some calling for renewed diplomacy and others demanding continued strength. The aftershocks would ripple for years, reshaping alliances and norms. Countries reconsidered their partnerships, and international organizations faced new challenges to their authority. The world's balance of power shifted, as old alliances were tested and new ones formed in response to the bold American action. January 4th 2026 became a turning point, a day when the rules changed. News of the operation spread rapidly, sparking debates in parliaments, living rooms, and on the streets. The world paused, realizing that history had just taken a dramatic turn. The world, and America's place in it, would never be the same. As nations adjusted to the new reality, questions lingered about justice, power, and the future of international relations. Operation Freedom's dawn left a legacy that would shape global affairs for generations to come.